everybody, welcome back. If you are new, I am ℙ𝕣𝕠𝕕 and I am the Eclectic Herbalist. In today's video, I wanted to kind of discuss how I started my craft, my practice, that sort of thing. I realized that I've been here for 2 years and I have yet to do that. So let's begin. Mine isn't some extravagant story. I don't have any sort of religious trauma. My mother did baptize me Greek Orthodox, like Catholic. The only thing I remember from that was that the first church she took me to did not want to baptize me because I'm black. So she took me to another one, and she didn't really take me to church on Sundays. And the only kind of memory I have of going to church was with my babysitter, which was like one time, and then with my father, which I believe was twice. I just know one of those times I sat in a playroom. The second time, or maybe it was the first time, I don't know, the other time that I went with my father, they did this weird play. Some of you who have gone to church may know what I'm talking about. It was this weird play where these people would act out this scenario and then everything would pause. Like, they would end up dying. Everything would freeze. A guy would come on and kind of discuss what they did wrong, what they did good, and then everything would, like, they'd start acting again, and they would either be in heaven or hell. And there was one skit in particular where the guy had committed suicide and he went straight to hell. And I thought that was really just bizarre. So I have always kind of been skeptical from like a super young age about religion. And then my uncle had gotten me a children's Bible. It was like a picture book and kind of watered down the Bible, but still, all I remember is I sat down to read it, and it got through how God created earth in 6 days. He rested on the seventh day. And then it went straight to people, the slaves, building pyramids. So I closed that up, went out to the living room and said, "Mom, where are the dinosaurs?" And she said, "Oh, honey, honey, there are no dinosaurs in the Bible." So I said, "Then I'm not going to read this." To which she said, "Yes, you will." I'm about 9 years old at this point, so she didn't really put up a fight with me or anything like that when I said I wasn't going to read it anymore. There was one point in high school where me and my stepfather were having a discussion, and I said I didn't really believe in Christianity, and my mom said, "Well, you weren't raised that way," to which I replied that she never really raised me any religious way, because she didn't really have, like, she didn't have much of a, I don't know how to put it, she didn't really care. She did, but she didn't. So there's that. I don't have any religious trauma. I don't really have any dramatic story other than I thought that play that they had me watch at the bright, innocent age of 4 or 5 was just really weird, really out there to be told, like, the littlest things, you're going to hell. That was just really bizarre to me. In my mind, though, at that time, at that age, like, spirituality and witchcraft and paganism were just like the unknown. I didn't know anything about it. I didn't know anyone that practiced it or did anything with it, and so my proximity to it was very, very just non-existent. I, like, went to school and, like, we didn't, like, there weren't kids walking around talking about weird spiritual teachers or weird spiritual neighbors or anything like that. Like, when I say it was a box for me, I mean my only connection to witchcraft was Harry Potter. And it wasn't until about a little after high school, my sister-in-law had asked me to go to a crystal shop that sold, like, crystals and witchy things, and I was interested in going with her, but then we never ended up going. I can't really remember why. We just never ended up going to this particular crystal shop. This is now the crystal shop I go to all the time. But so again, my introduction to it was very vague. It wasn't until, I think, how old? 2019. So in 2019, which was only a few years ago, there was one week in my life that just kind of was a domino effect, or there's just a week in my life where the universe was practically screaming at me to look into it more, or to just kind of change who I am as a person. Not saying that I was like a horrible person before. I'm probably the same exact person, but it was just this week a lot happened that got me going. So that's where my story will begin, because that's about the most interesting things. So we will start with, I came across a post on Facebook one day, one afternoon, for a webtoons series called Lore Olympus. I was really interested when it was talking about Hades and his wife Persephone, because in high school, my senior year, we had spent the entire first semester in my English class on the Odyssey. It was obviously a very watered down version for high schoolers, but not at any point in the lessons or the readings or what we were learning did we speak or discuss Persephone or the fact that Hades was married. And I had always been interested in Greek mythology, but it was one of those things I found cool, but I just didn't. I was in high school. I had my first son at 18, I got pregnant at 17. So the things that I was interested in high school that were like outside of the realm of boys and friends was just kind of on the back burner. And then I had a baby and kind of, I wouldn't say put my life on hold, I just didn't have the motivation or energy to look into anything that I was interested in. So that's why when I found this Lore Olympus webtoons, I was really interested. So I started reading it, and then what I thought was just a few episodes turned into, I think it was like the whole first season that I got caught up with in an afternoon. And then after that, I looked into the myths of Hades and Persephone and was really intrigued by that. And so like this whole same week, I'm still like researching Hades and Persephone and things like that. Within this week at my job, we, for whatever reason, started having a religious discussion. Not a debate, it was actually a pleasant discussion. And when it got to me, I had said that I was not a religious person, but if I was to pick a religion or any sort of thing to believe in, it would be in what, like Greek mythology, what that is. And my coworker kind of made a face and was like, "Ooh, that's paganism." And I had heard the term before, again, never looked into it, so I had heard the term spoken negatively in the moments that I had heard it spoken, but I didn't understand what it was, so when he said that, I was just like, okay. And I went and looked into it and realized that everything about paganism is how I want to live and how I have been, at that moment, trying to shift myself and my family towards living. So a very natural-based lifestyle that kind of follows the seasons very religiously. I don't like using that word, but just the seasons are important, and nature deities and things like that, and things outside the realm of God and Jesus. So I realized that was of more interest to me. I'm not sure how long after that conversation happened, but then I was in a group chat on Instagram with a few people, and one of them was showing us her crystals. She had mentioned that she needed to charge them in the sun, so she had sent us a video of all of the crystals she was putting outside. And so me and my other friend had started asking her about it, and she said, "Oh, I got you." And she pulled out all these books and took a picture, because it wasn't like a FaceTime or anything. So she just took a video of all the books she had, and one of them was The Green Witch, which I now have. So it's that book I'm currently reading. She showed us that, and that got me really interested. So in this one week, I had discovered I had rediscovered my love for Greek mythology, specifically Hades and Persephone. I had discussed paganism and researched more into that, and then I had finally, within my life, met someone who was really involved in spirituality and witchcraft. So from there, me and my other friend that was in the group chat, we had asked her more questions and got more insight, and then that's when I had dragged my husband to the crystal store that my sister-in-law had mentioned years prior. I had asked her about it, and she gave me the location because it was still running, obviously. And so me and my husband went, and I got my first set of crystals and a few books, and from there it kind of just took off. And here I am now, only maybe 5 years later, still learning. All of my videos are not really for solid concrete education. They're more for, this is what I do and this is how I learned it. I'm not an expert, and I will never pretend to be. As you may have noticed in my videos, I am very open with not even being able to pronounce some things properly. As for the two that had started me in my path, I had mentioned in a previous video, or a few, that Hades and Persephone are quite big in my household. They are the two deities that I follow and tend to work with. I believe I mentioned that I don't really worship them because that's a bit more of a commitment, and I can't even remember to feed myself daily. I can feed everyone else, but myself, can't do that. One thing I do wish I knew at the beginning of my practice was to write everything down, and that I don't need everything right at the beginning. And writing everything down, it is spoken a lot about. Have your book of shadows, have your notes, write down your spells, keep track of everything, and that seems like a given, but when you're really in the moment, as I tend to be, especially when I do any spells, I forget to grab a pen or a paper or any of that and write it down, so I kind of have to go back and try and remember. If you can't remember to get something out and write it down, maybe record it. Record what you do, or voice record, whatever helps, just so that way you can remember, because I have a very bad memory. And then along with not buying all the tools all at once, I've come to learn you will definitely gather random things that can be used. I have found plenty of just sticks at the beach that I have taken, bones that I made bone broth for my dog a few years back, and was left with just a whole bunch of bovine bone chunks. Kept them. Almost everything I have, I think I bought less than half of the things that I've owned. Everything else was collected. So not having to go out to the crystal shop or the spiritual store and buy things like a cauldron or your tarot deck or a whole bunch of crystals and pendulum and mats, and just those things will come. You'll probably go to the crystal shop a few dozen times, you could pick it up, or you can find crystals. You don't have to purchase everything all at once. You'll definitely acquire it over time. But yeah, that is how I started my craft. I am only 5 years into it. Another thing I wish is that I had started it a lot sooner. I wish that I had maybe not been so shy and not outgoing. If I had been more outgoing and spoke to people, I probably would have met more people of different life interests and probably came by it a lot sooner. But I'm a shy individual, which does tend to inhibit you of meeting other people. Anyways, that is all I have for today's video. I hope to see you next week, and as always, have a fantastic day.